So hey guys, welcome to Noteworks channel. So we are under the playlist of Python programming. So let's continue with the fourth chapter, which is lists. So under lists, we'll be learning a few topics. So the topics are the list, what is a list data type, then working with lists, then augmented assignment operators, then what is methods, then example program, magic 8 ball with a list, then list type. There are strings and tuples, then references. Then we're going to look into some few questions and practice projects. So this is the topics under this chapter, which is list. So let's dive right in into the first topic, which is the list data type. So first things first, what is a list? So first thing is, what is a list? So it is an ordered ordered collection of values. It is an ordered collection of values. So if you look into the syntax of this, it is with inside this brackets with items separated by commas. The items separated by commas. For example, cat, comma, bat, comma, rat, comma, elephant. So this is one way of writing a list. Then, so it can contain mixed data types also. So it can contain mixed types also. When you say mixed types, it can contain things like strings, numbers, booleans, and none. So it can contain any of this. It's not like it has to be in the same order. Anyhow, it can contain, for example, hello 3.14, true, none. So there are different types here in a list. So the next one is something called as an empty list. So empty list is just two brackets with nothing inside. So this is an empty list. So list themselves are single values. They themselves are single values that can be stored in variable. So that can be stored in variables. So this is what is a list. Then next comes accessing list values, with indexes. So accessing list value with indexes. First thing you need to remember is indexing starts at 0. So it starts at 0. So for example, if you look at a list spam, let's take the same thing. We wrote somewhere, right? Yeah, this one. So if we take spam is equal to this list, then spam of 0 will be cat. Similarly, this will be spam of 1. This will be spam of 2. And this will be spam of 3. So this is index. So indexing starts at 0. Second point is errors. So there will be different type of errors in this, such as index out of range. So when you input a index or a number, there are only 3 here. But for example, if you put 4, it's not there in the range. So that time you'll have a index error. The next is index must be, so whichever index you put, it must be a integer. It cannot be anything else. It must be an integer. So type error. If float is used. So anything else, if its float is used, then there'll be a type error. Next is nested lists. So what does this mean? Lists inside lists. This is what you mean by nested lists. For example, spam is equal to cat, cat, bat. This is one item in the list. And the second item is 10, 20, 30. So for example, if you say spam 0, 1, then you get answer as bat. So basically, let's assume this such that this is, I mean, in this list, this is 1, or I mean, this is 0 since index starts at 0, and this is 1. So in the 0th list, inside there are 2 again. So this becomes 0 and this becomes 1. And the first one, this becomes 0, this becomes 1, this becomes 2. So when we say spam of 1 of 1, that means first it looks into the outer loop, outer bracket. So in that 1 means this element. Inside this 1 again. So it will be 20. So you'll get answer as 20. So this is how nested lists work. And the next is negative indexes. Next is negative indexes. So negative indexes count from the end. They count from the end. So that means -1 is considered as the last item, -2 as second last item, and so on, etc. So in the above spam, where is that? Yeah, let's. So in the spam, if you say something like spam of -1, so then you'll get the answer as elephant. So this means this is -1, or let's write it as this is spam of -1, this is spam of -2, this is spam of, this is spam of -3 and -4 and so on. So this is how negative indexing works. next topic is slicing lists. So, what does slicing mean? So, slicing is basically considering only little part of the whole list. If the whole list has 10 elements, considering only 2 to 3, and how do you do that is what slicing basically means. So, the syntax for this would be the syntax for this could be list, and we start with the start index and end. So, how it ends meaning it takes items from index start to end minus 1. For example, if you say, let's take the same this thing and say if spam, you say 1 to 3. So that means it should take 1 and 2 elements. So you'll get the answer as so this is 0, 1, 2, 3. 1 and 2 because 3 minus 1 is 2. So you'll get the answer as bat and rat. Similarly, if you say spam, you don't write anything from the start and you just say 2. So it considers it from the start and 2 minus 1, it is 1. So it'll take, right? It'll say cat and bat. Similarly, if you say spam 1, what this does is it takes till the last element, which is 3. So it starts from 1 and goes till the end. So it takes bat, rat, and elephant. So, and if you don't write anything on both the sides and you just write a column, then it takes the whole list. So it'll be cat, cat, bat, rat, elephant, elephant. So what do you learn? What's the key takeaway from this is leaving out start starts from starts at 0, whereas leaving out end goes till list end. So it goes till the list end. So this is how slicing list works. Next topic is getting list length. Getting list length. So you similarly use the len operator. So you use len of list to count items. So when you say len spam, so spam has how many? Spam has you're not indexing, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 items. So you get length as 4. This is not indexing, we're just counting the number of items. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's why length of spam will be 4. And the next one is modifying list items. Modifying list items. So assign new value at index. So it basically assigns new value at index. So this time we are not printing what is there, we are assigning a new value. For example, now if you say spam, so okay, wait, let's look at the initial, what was there. This is the initial. So when you say spam of 1 is equal to AARD work. So how will this change? Meaning the above thing will change means so the first indexed element will change to AARD work or whichever string you give. Similarly, the next statement, if you say spam of -1 is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then what happens is then what happens is it takes the last element and changes it to, so it takes the last element AARD okay, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it changes to this. So this is how you modify a item in a list. Next is list concatenation and replication. List concatenation and replication. So how do you concatenate normal what do you say strings is using a plus. Here also it's similar to that. So concatenate with this. So what does this is? This joins lists. What does concatenate mean? You know this. But in case of string, it joins string. So for example, if you say one comma, this is a list, and you use plus and you say A, B. So then what would the resultant be? Means it'll be 1 comma 2 comma A comma B. So it combines it to 1. Then this is concatenate. There's something called as replicate. We have already seen this in case of strings. This is basically a star symbol. So a star symbol. So this repeats list elements. So if I say x, y into 3, then the resultant would be x, y, x, y, x, y. Yeah, that's all, 3 times. So this would be the result. This would be the resultant. This is about concatenation and replication. Next, deleting list items. How do you delete list items? So you use del to remove an item using the index. So if you say del, see, you know this is the spam. Actually, we changed it. Spam right now is this. Yeah. So this is the spam list. So if I say del spam of 2, so the index 0, 1, 2, 3. So 2 means rat. So we must remove the rat. So it becomes spam equal to cat AARDVARK, and we remove the second one, and in that place it'll come 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here values get shifted. So index will be 2 for this, right? So values after it shift left. So after deleting it shifts left. So del can also delete entire variable. So it can delete the whole spam itself, the whole list itself. But this is rarely used because there's no point in creating if you're deleting it. So this is about the introduction of list. Next, we'll be talking about the real time how you work with lists. So hey guys, let's continue with working with list. In the previous you saw what is list and what are the different functions you can perform on a list. So now we'll be working with list. So first what you need to understand is why use list. Second, yeah, first is why use list instead of multiple variables. You might have got this question, why use list at all when you have a simpler declaration and understanding of simpler, just using variables for different inputs. So how it helps is avoids repetitive variable creation. So you don't need to create variables again and again. So if you have 10 cat names, you don't need to create cat name 1, cat name 2, cat name 3. You can just create one variable and assign all to it. Then list store any number of any number of values in a single variable. So list stores any number of values in a single variable. So by using list, code shorter, becomes shorter, more flexible. It becomes more flexible and easier to maintain. So it is shorter, more flexible, and easier to maintain. So for example, you have cat name 1 is equal to Zufi and cat name 2 is equal to Cookie. And this is how you have to do if you have to create multiple variables. Whereas if you use list, you can write the same thing as cat names, just one variable, and you can just write in between. So this can go on until 10, 11, 100 also. So you can just write cat name and say first is Zufi and the next is Cookie, and so on it can go. So this is the use of using list. Now second one is while working with list, you need to understand how to input from the user the list values. So collecting input into a list. So how do you collect input into a list? So let's write a program for that. Say we're taking again cat names. Cat names, we initially initialize it as empty. Then while true, while true, we print enter the name of cat plus, so we print the length of the list at the present. Initially it is 0 length because it is empty. Length of the cat name plus 1, and we convert it into a string form so that we can concatenate. This we print. So enter a cat name plus whichever the number of the meaning first cat name, second cat name is for this statement is for that, or type nothing to stop. So basically we should type nothing to stop the while loop. So there must be some end, no? So that then when you put nothing, then it is considered as null. When it's considered null, it returns back as false. So when return back as false, this true will this loop will terminate. So you can say name is equal to input. So you're just putting a different variable name and taking the input in it in each loop. So if we now we have to put a statement. If name is equal to null, meaning as you said, if you put nothing, it'll be a empty space. Then what do? You break from the loop. Otherwise, if it is not null, continue. You say cat names and you add it. How do you add it? You say cat name. Initially it is null, right? So cat names plus name. So for this is how you list concatenate. So whichever variable you wish to concatenate into the list, you put a bracket around it and you use the plus symbol. So this is how you list concatenate. So this is very similar to so yeah, let's continue. So cat names. So this is how you list concatenate using cat names and the input we got in the name variable. So next one, what we need to do is this loop is over. Now we need to print. We need to print what we have got in the list. So we say the cat names are for name. Name is just a variable I'm taking. It's not this name because this name's what do you say scope is gone after we went out of the while loop. So this name is just another variable in cat names. So what happens in this statement is every value in the cat name list will go and input into the name variable. So it'll get stored in the name variable. For each loop it'll be changing. So then in each loop will change, right? So for that we'll say print, leave some space, plus we say name. So we print each cat names one after the other. So what is the use of this is there's no fixed amount of input. You can input as many as you want, and it's easier to display all names using a for loop. So what is the advantage of this is it can store any number of inputs, and it's easier to display all names using a for loop. So using a for loop, it's easier to display all the names. So this is how it works. So let's try understanding how the input works. So I'm going to use a red pen. So here initially this is the cat name list variable. So it is initially 0. It has nothing in it. It is null. So then we start the while loop. So this is our terminal. Let's assume this is our terminal. In this terminal, what do you say is it this statement occurs first, saying enter string. Initially it is 0, right? The length of the string. So it'll be 0 plus 1, it is 1. Enter name of cat 1, or in the bracket it'll be or do nothing to stop. So this is your first line statement. Then the next line you should input a name. So first I'll take the same inputs as here, Zupi and Pookie. So here I say Zufi. So after inputting Zufi, it goes and stores in the name variable. So it checks. Since we inputted Zufi, it is not null, so it doesn't break. It goes to the next one. It concatenates with the cat name. Initially, cat name is this has nothing in it. Then what we added? We added Zufi in it, comma. Then after adding this while loop is still not broken, so it starts back again. So it start backs, and this time it will be enter cat number 2, and this is the next statement. After this, again it will leave a space. So now we can write Pookie. So in Pookie again it checks the if statement, it is false, so it doesn't execute the break. It comes here and then it inputs again Pookie. It inputs again Pookie. Now now after this it says enter 3. It goes for the third loop. It says enter 3. This time I don't enter anything. I just leave it blank and press enter. Then it checks. The inputted name is null. So that way it breaks. It breaks the while statement and it comes here. It comes here. So it says print the name, print the cat names. So it prints the cat names. So what we got our cat names as variable as after everything. We got it as Zoopy and Pookie. So we got Zoofy and Pookie. So for this, we say for name in cat name. So what happens is initially name will be equal to the first one. So what it'll print, it'll leave some, this is a terminal. After leaving some space, it'll print Zoofy. Then in the second loop, name becomes Pookie. So it'll again leave some space and print Pookie. So like this, we can keep on printing and keep on storing in the list. This is the advantage of list. And it's easier to display also. Just by using the small for loop, you can display. Whereas if you use different variables, you need to print each and every variable depending on the names. So this is how this storing information from the user works. Then the next one is using for loops with list. Is using for loops for lists. So for loops run once for each item. So as displayed above, I'm reiterating how that works. So it runs once for each item in a list. In a list. So if I say for I in for I in instead of giving the list variable, I give the list itself. So for I in 0, 1, 2, 3 list, I print I. And what happens? The output we'll get as 0, 1, 2, 3. We get the output as 0, 1, 2, 3. You meaning if you want to print like this in a sequence, you can also write this with using range. So if you say range of n, so what happens? This produces a list like sequence. It produces a list like sequence from 0 to n minus 1. So in this case, what should be our n? It should be 4 minus, it should be, if n should be 4. So 4 minus 1 will get us 3. So he'll print till 3. So this is how we can use, meaning I'm just saying this is not how how list is, but we can write the same statement just by using range. Then the next topic which comes under this is iterating by index. Next is iterating by index. So what do you mean by iterating by indexes? For example, you have a list name supplies is equal to pens, staplers, flamethrower, and binders. So you have a list having all this data inside it. So you start with the for loop for I in range you say range, and you give the length of the list variables. So since index starts from 0, it will print everything. So now what we need to do, iterating by index meaning we need to print the element along with its index. So we say print, this is the index. How do you get the index? You just print each iteration. So I say str I. So index 0 it starts from. Less in supplies is, so at index 1 the supplies is supplies of I. So you give the index here, then it'll print whatever index 0, supplies 0, this is supplies 0, supplies 1, supplies 2, supplies 3, and so on. So what's happening here is the range len list. This function, what we are doing, it lets you access both index and value. So it lets you access both index and value. So this is how you iterate by index. Easy. Okay. Next. So now the next topic is in and not in operators. So what do you mean by in and not in operators? So what you do is you check. So you check if an item exists in a list. So how do you do this? You do this by using in and not in operator. How they work is you say howdy is a string. Howdy in hello, hi, howdy. So when you execute this, you'll get the output as true since howdy is there in the list. Similarly, if you say cat in hello, hi, and howdy, this also, sorry, not in. This time we use the not in operator. So we say cat not in. So we are saying cat is not there in this. So which is true. So again, this also gives back true. So this is how you use in and not in operator. So let's look at an example program. So you say my pets is equal to Zufi, Pookie, and Fat Tail and Fat Tail. So these are your pets, and you say name is equal to input, enter a pet name. You say input is you input. This is the sentence you get before you put the input. So enter a pet name. So name, if name is not in my pets, so if name is not in my pets, then you print I don't have a pet named pet name, whatever name you have inputted. If it is true, if it is false, if it's true, it print this. If it is false, then you print the name of the pet you inputted plus it is my pet. So what's happening here is basically if name is not in my pets and print I don't have a pet name. So what it's doing, it's checking. Why am I giving a not in example? Because we have seen many in examples in the above statement. So not in is basically we are saying here whatever you have inputted. For example, you have inputted Zufi itself. So Zufi is not in my pet. So but Zufi is there. So this becomes false. So if this is false, it'll go to the else statement. And if it's else, then it'll print Zufi is my pet. But if you put something like hey and you say hey is not in my pet, that is true. So it'll say I don't have a pet named Hey. So this is how not in operator works. And the next one is the multiple assignment trick. So this is a small trick. It is handy to know. So what this is as you can assign multiple variables from a list in one line. So you can do it in one line. So this is the trick. So how it's done is you say cat is equal to fat, comma, black and loud. So these are your three strings. So you say size, these are variable, size is a variable, color is a variable, disposition is a variable. So when you input this as cat, then what happens is each of this in order, fat goes to size, color will contain black, deposition will loud. So for example, if I print, if I print size, and if I print color, and if I print disposition, what happens is in the output you'll get fat, black, and loud. So you assign three at a go to three different variables instead of writing three different lines. So, but there's a condition. There's a condition. The condition is that the number of variables, they must match list length. They must match list length. Else you'll get a value error. You'll get a value error. So this is with working with list. Next, you will be seeing about augmented assignment operator. So the next topic is augmented assignment operators. So what is augmented assignment operators is basically when you need to update a variable value based on its current value. So when you need to do this, we can use shorthand operators instead of repeating the variable names. So there's something called as shorthand operators which we can use instead of repeating the variable name. So for example, you have something called as we start writing a code where spam is equal to 42. Now we need to increment this by plus 1. So it becomes spam is equal to 42 plus 1 or spam plus 1. Instead of writing this line where you use spam twice, you can write it similarly like spam is equal to 42. So spam plus will be equal to 1. So this and this are both equivalent. So both are equivalent. So this makes it looks cleaner and it is more shorter to write instead of writing the variable twice. So common augmented assignment operators are there's above you saw plus equal to. So that basically means x is equal to x plus value. There's minus equal to, which means x is equal to x minus value. There's multiplied equal to, which means x is equal to x into value. Then there's divide equal to, which means x is equal to x divided value. And there is modulus equal to, which is x is equal to x modulus the value. So these are the common augmented assignment operators. So then let's look at few examples of practical usage. Then let's look in the case of numbers. So first we have x is equal to 42. Then we have spam plus is equal to 1. Then spam minus is equal to 2. Then spam into is equal to 2. Then next is we have spam divide by is equal to 4. Then spam modulus is equal to 5. So these are the operations we are going to do on numbers. So what would be these outputs are? Initially it is 42. Then what it becomes? 42 plus 1. So it becomes 43. Then it becomes 43 minus 2. So it becomes 41 in this line. Then here it will become into 2, which is 82. Spam is equal to 82. Then next, after 82 here, spam divided by 4. If you divide this by 4, you'll get how much? 41. You'll get something in points. So let's assume somewhere near, okay, 2, 4. So let's say 82 divided by 4. Yeah, 4 ones are, 4 twos are 0.5. So 20.5. So let's say we get 20 here. Now if you have to divide it by 5, you'll get answer as 4. So we are changing the value of spam in each line. So this is how it works. So if you write this as a code, this is how the progressive output will come. So this is a case of numbers. Whereas next, let's look in the case of strings, or to be specific, concatenations. So if you look at this case, we can say spam is equal to hello, and then you can say spam plus is equal to world. So this would be same as writing spam is equal to spam plus world. So if you implement it, this means it's the same as writing hello plus world. So when you do this, you get the output as hello world. You get the output as hello world. So this is how you use string for concatenation. Now let's next look at lists. How can we use this in lists? So you can say bacon is equal to Zufi, and bacon into is equal to 3. So what happens here is the bacon output would be, if you print bacon, you'll get output as Zufi, Zufi, Zufi. So this is how you get the three outputs. So basically you use these operators to make your code look shorter, cleaner, and easier to read. So this is a use of augmented assignment operators. So the next topic comes is methods. Okay, so the next topic is methods. So let's see what is methods, or what is a method. So it is a it is it is like a function. It is like a function, but is called on a value, called on a value or an object. So how it's done is, let's look at the syntax. If I say something like value dot method argument, and I say this, so this is the syntax. So if I say like spam is a value and the method I'm using is index, and I say hello. So what's happening here is each data has its own set of methods. So each data has its own set of methods. So list methods are used for finding, adding, adding, removing, sorting, and modifying. They're used for doing all these function on list items. So let's look at each methods that we have. So this is a syntax or outview on how it's gonna be. So let's look at the first one. The first one is finding a value. So for finding a value, what do you use or what do? You use, as in the syntax I showed, index function. So you use a index function. So what does this do? Returns this returns the index of the first index of the so return the index of the first occurrence of a value. So this returns the first occurrence of the value, and it raises value error raises value error if value not found. The value is not found, it raises a value error. Let's look at an programming example. Example, if we say spam is equal to, let's take a list, hello, hi, howdy, hey, yeah, and you call the spam and use the function. Sorry, my bad. You use the function index with hello as the argument. So this becomes a method. So this will output 3. Sorry, I mean, this will output 0 because it is at the 0th index. Similarly, if you say spam index of hey yeah, then this will input and give output as 3 since this is at the third index. So now a question might come, what happens if there are two hellos or when there are two heyas? Then so in that case, if duplicates exist, duplicates exist, only the first index, only the first index is returned. So only the first index is returned. So how is so if the argument Luffy, Pookie, Fat Tail, and you say again Pookie. So there are two Pookies here, and you use the index function and you ask where is Pookie. So then the output will just take the first occurrence, which is at place index 1, and give the output as 1. So this is for finding a value. So next is adding values. So for adding values, there are two functions actually. One is append and the other one is insert. So one is append and the other one is insert. So let's look at first thing. What does the append do? So append of x, if I say, that means it adds x to end of the list. So at the end of the list, it will add x. So if I say, for example, if I say something like spam dot, so spam is basically hello, hi, howdy, here. So if I say append what, for example, I say, okay, moose. If I say this, what happens is it'll add, so spam becomes spam will become hello. Initially it was hello, hi, howdy, hey ya. So let's think this is the initial. This is what it was. So this is what it was initially. But then we gave append dot moves. Then what happens is spam becomes all these things. Sorry, it becomes all these things. Why? From your please retry again. Okay. Let's try again. Copy, paste. Okay. Yeah. So it does all these things, but at the end it adds another which is moves. So this is what append does. So it doesn't take any index as an input, it just appends at the end. But whereas what does insert? What does insert do is insert I comma x is the function. So what it does is it adds x at index I. So it adds it at index I. So if I say, let's look at an example. So again, let's take the spam as the initial one. So this is our initial spam. So I'm calling the insert function. I'm saying spam dot insert at 1. So insert at first place what? Chicken. So if I insert this, what this does is these modify the list in place and returns none. So basically it just modifies it. So it don't assign them back. It doesn't assign them back. So another thing, it works only on lists. If you try on using on anything else, it'll give a attribute error on anything else. So it works only on lists. So okay, yeah, with this, what would the output be here? So the output would be it will insert at index 1, meaning at where high is, and shifts to the right, the rest all elements to the right. So this becomes hello, then this becomes chicken, then the rest after at whichever is there, it'll add +1 to their index. So this goes to 2, howdy goes to 3, and heya goes to 4. So this is how insert works. Whereas append just does it at the end. So this is adding values. Now let's look at removing values. So we use the remove function for removing values. So what does this do? This removes first occurrence. It removes first occurrence of the specified value. For example, if I say spam dot remove, if I say remove hello, so what happens? Initially it was, let's, so initially it was this, right? So initially it was this. So when you say remove hello, it will remove and print, or not print, it will save. It'll remove hello and it'll shift one step back. So it'll go hi, howdy, and here. So this will have 0, 1, and 2 index. This is how it works. So, but if you say something like spam dot remove bat, if you do this, it is not there in the spam variable. So what happens is this will, so this will raise a value error if the value is not found. So note, you use del list index when you know the index you want to delete. Whereas you use remove value when you know the value, when you know the value. Get it when you use del and when you use remove. So this is for removing part of the list. Next is sorting values. Sorting values. So for sorting values, you obviously use the sort function. So what does it do? Yeah, you guessed it right. It sorts list in place. So when you say something like spam dot sort, it will sort it from ascending to descending. Whereas you can also say like spam dot sort, if you use something called as the reverse keyword and you put this as true, by default this is false. So when you put this as true, you will get a reverse order, meaning from descending to ascending. So this is ascending to descending. So this is equivalent to spam dot sort reverse equal to false. So by default it is false, but unless and until you specify it's true, this will go from descending to ascending. Similarly, you can even say spam dot sort key is equal to str dot lower. So what does this do is it avoids the case sensitivity and makes it case insensitive. So when while sorting, it doesn't get confused between capital and take different values. So few notes to remember under this is, so returns, this always returns none. So it it doesn't assign back. It always returns none. Then works only if it works only if all items are all items are of same type. So if all items are of same type, then only it works. Then by default strings are sorted by ASCII order. So this means that it's uppercase before lowercase sorting. So these are the functions present in list. So next we are going to go through a example program which is magic 8 ball with a list. We have seen this before, but this time we are going to see how it is done with the help of list. Okay, so let's continue. Now here we're going to look at an example program. So magic 8 ball with a list. So we have done the magic 8 ball program before, but not with a list. So let's look at the why do we need to use a list for this. We have successfully run it before, but why do we need a list right now? So how does it help? So this shows how lists make programs simpler. So it makes it simpler and more maintainable. So it makes it more maintainable. Next, replaces multiple repetitive elif statements with single list of messages. So we have seen a elif ladder very big, but right now we can avoid that with the help of lists. So okay, let's dive right into the code. So let's look at the program code. So you can compare this with your previous 8 ball to see how easily we can do it with uh, lists. So let's get started. So first import random. So I'm importing random as a module. Then next message is equal to. So let's give the first. There were many messages, so let's give few. It is certain is one. Don't forget the comma after each because that's how it's divided in list. Next is it is decidedly so. Decidedly so. Then next is yes. Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. Nitly. I'm sorry. Definitely, comma. Next is reply hazy, try again. Then next is ask again later. Then next is concentrate and ask again. Concentrate and ask again. Then next is my reply is no. My reply is no. Then next is Outlook not so good. Outlook not so good. Then next is very doubtful. So these are the same statements. So but this is in a list. Doubtful. Okay. So let's close the list. Let's close the list. So now the logic of the code print message. So in the message we should print a random index. For that I'll take a random, sorry, 1 minute. It takes a random module with the function randint, which produces random variables at times. We used in the previous program also. 0 comma length, and we take the length of the message. Length of the messages. Since we are starting from 0, we have to do -1. So that's it. So we close the list and then we close the print function. So this is the same program logic as the previous, how it works. Here a random variable is generated. With that random variable, that becomes the index for the message, and each time we'll give different response. So I'm gonna write it down how it works in words, how it works. So the message variable, the messages or messages, anything, it's this is a list, not variable. List stores possible magic 8-ball responses. So it stores all the responses. Then the random dot randint 0 comma len of message minus 1. This what it does is generates a random index generates a random index between 0 and last element index. So using using which function? The len message function, we can ensure that the code still works. The code still works even if items are added. Even if items are added or removed from the list. So there's no other changes required except adding or deleting some messages for the list variable. So this is how it works. So above you have seen I have written all these without an indentation or not in a straight line. So this is an exception. So exception to Python indentation rules. So this is an exception. So what happens here? Lists can span, it can span multiple lines. It can span multiple lines. Indentation, indentation within the list, indentation within the list doesn't, it doesn't affect execution until the bracket closes. Until the closing of bracket, it doesn't affect the indentation. So similarly, we can write spam is equal to, so writing a straight line, I can say apples, comma, oranges, comma. In the next line, I can write bananas, whatever spelling it is. Yeah, bananas and cats. So the point here is the indentation is not required, and we are, but after this closes, we should have proper indentation. So line continuation with this or slash allows long instructions to split across lines. So we can use a slash to split across lines. So how that works is I can, if I have a big print statement, instead of continuing until you scroll like this, instead of doing that, I can do something like for 4 score 7 till here. I concatenate again. I use a slash operator here, and I say, and I go to next line and say years ago. So writing here continuation and using the slash and going to next line, both will be same. So why do we need this? What can be the purpose? Readability. So it makes long code more readable. This is the only, there's no syntactical reason for doing this, but only that it is made readable. So the next is, uh, okay, now you might see what are the advantages of this approach. What are the advantages of this approach? So it has a cleaner and shorter than multiple elif statements, easy to add or remove messages as we discussed above, without need for updating the full code, updating multiple parts of code. Then the next one is less chance of bugs, or bugs means errors basically. So there are less chance of bugs. So this is it for the 8 ball magic 8 ball problem. You can try executing this on your system or whichever compiler you're using. Okay, so the next one is list like types, strings and tuples. So these are strings you already know, then tuples also you know. So let's like list like types. So there are different types like list, which are strings and tuples. Let's look into them. So strings as list like variables. So we are trying to treat strings and tuples like a list like variable. So list like values. What this means is strings are sequence of characters may list, sorry, not may, many list of operations, many list operations work on them. So we have seen many list operations, so they work on string also. For example, indexing. Indexing, if I say indexing, basically, if I say name of anything, it will give a value. One second. Okay, so for looking at these, let's take an string example. Let's say, for example, name is equal to Zophie a cat. What is Zophie a cat? Zophie a cat. So I can do indexing. How if I say name of 0, then I get output as Z. Similarly, I can even do negative indexing. So if I say name of -2, what will happen? It'll start -1, -2. So I'll get A as the output. Similarly, if I say, or let's not take this, let's take only Zophie since it is not a big string. Let's take only Zophie. So you'll get Z here. What will you get here? You'll get I as your output. Similarly, you can even do slicing. So slicing, if you say name 0 to 4, you'll get the output as Zoff. Similarly, you can do operations or operators. You can use operators like in and not in. So if you say zo in name, you'll get true. If you say p in name, sorry, not in name, p not in name. So p is there, so this will become false. Then loops. You can loop between the functions. If you say for ch in name, so this will print what all characters are there in each. So it will print z first. So if I say ch print, so output would be like z o p h I e, so on. So the only key difference from list, strings are immutable. What this means is it can't change character directly. So it can't change character directly. This is what is this means. Now you might ask, what is the difference between mutable and immutable? So now let's see what's the difference between mutable versus immutable data types. You'll have a clarity on what is mutable data type mean and immutable data type means. So first one, what does mutable mean? So values can be changed in place. Values can be changed in place. This is mutable. Whereas immutable means, what does immutable mean? Meaning values can't be altered. So values can't be altered. So if you want to look at an example, we can say name is equal to Zophie a cat. So when I say name of 7, so here if you try to change it to the, here you'll get a type error. So the correct way to do this is, if you want to actually add the here, you have to use slicing and concatenation techniques. Slicing and concatenation techniques. So how is this done is, you can start new name, a new variable you use, and say name, and you slice till 7th index, and you add the there, and you continue the index. So you say 8 and go on. So this is how it's done. So if you want to do overwriting overwriting versus modifying, so if you say eggs is equal to 1 2 3, so if you want to change this to, if you want to change this completely to eggs is equal to 4 5 6, so you want to overrides variables with new list. So to modify original list in place, to modify this, you use del eggs. First you delete the whole list inside it. Then you say eggs dot extend. Since it's deleted, then you can extend 4, 5, 6 in the list. So what happens, it becomes null and then you add 4, 5, 6. So this is how you overwrite or modify. Next which comes is the tuple variable, or the tuple data type. So these tuple data types are similar to list. They are similar to list, but uses parenthesis instead of square bracket. They uses parenthesis, which is this, instead of square bracket. So instead of square bracket, they use parenthesis. And this is immutable. Whereas lists are mutable, this is immutable. Again, I'll say what is immutable? Can't change elements or append or remove. Once it's done, it's done. You can't do any of this. So, example, eggs is equal to hello 42 comma 0.5. And if you say eggs 1 to 3, you do slicing. So what happens here? You get 42 comma 0.5. Then you print lengths of eggs. You get 3. So this is how tuples work. Very similar to this thing, but use parenthesis and they are immutable. Then next is something called as single value single value tuple. Single value tuple, you add a trailing comma. When you add a trailing comma, it becomes a single value tuple. So for example, if you do like where is that? Yeah, if you do something like type hello and you close it and you put a comma here, then this becomes a tuple data type. Whereas if you say only hello without a comma, then this becomes a string. So you might ask, there's string already and there's list already. Why do you need a tuple? So the advantages are this signals that data should not change. So this data should not change. So this data is fixed. This signals that. And it's slightly faster than list due to the immu- immutability. Immutability. So due to the immutability, it's slightly faster. So now we we need to know how to convert between these both. So converting between lists and tuples. So list converts list converts to a list only since it's mutable, and tuple converts to a tuple and it's immutable. So for example, if I say tuple cat, dog, and then 5, this prints it as cat, dog, 5. Whereas if I say list cat, dog, 5, this also considers it as a list only. Cat, dog, 5. When you say list, when you say hello, this also considered it as a list only. So you can say H, E, L, L, O, hello. So what's the use case here? So the use case is convert tuple, convert tuple list, convert tuple to list if you need to modify its content. So you can't change it as it's a tuple. So if you want to modify its content, you can change from tuple to list. So then you can modify. So this is all about strings and tuples. So the next thing which comes into play is references. So let's continue with references. So references, there. What is references? How is references used in functions? Is what we're going to see now. So before that, let's see what are variables and values got to do with references. So for immutable, for immutable types such as in string, tuples, variables store the value itself. They store the value itself. So for immutable types, they store the value itself. For example, if I say spam is equal to 42 and cheese is equal to spam, and then I say spam is equal to 100. So what happens here is spam becomes 100 and cheese becomes 42. So these are independent values. These are independent values. This is for immutable types. But what about for mutable types? So for mutable types, for example, like lists or dictionaries, which is the next chapter, what happens here is variables stores variables store a reference or a pointer to the object. So they don't directly save the value, they save a reference. So for example, if I say spam is equal to 0, comma 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4, comma 5, 4, comma 5, and say cheese is equal to spam. What this does is this copies the reference. Instead of copying the value, these copy the reference. So then when you say cheese of 1 is equal to hello, this modifies same list. So this modifies same list. So what will the output be, meaning spam here will be 0 comma hello. So spam also changed since we are changing the reference. We are not changing the value present in the cheese. We are changing the reference which is saved to cheese. So both the variables will change. Similarly, even cheese will have the same values. So both variables refer to the same list object. They refer to the same list object. So this is how references are used. So the next is what some key points about reference. Key points about references. Assignment of a list. Assignment of a list copies the reference. Copies the reference, not the actual list. So it copies the reference but not the actual list. So changing one variable's list also changes the other if they share the same reference. They say the same reference, then one variable's list also changes the other. Strings and integers are stored directly. They are stored directly as a value, not as a reference. Understood? These are the key points you need to remember. Next, what is passing references, or how to pass references to function? So how to pass references to functions? Function parameter Functions parameters receive a copy of the reference, not a copy of the object. Not copy of object. They get copy of the references. So when I say eggs function def x some parameter, and we say some parameter dot append. So what does append do? At the end it adds hello. So what this does is spam is equal to 1 2 3, and eggs spam, and then you print spam. So what this prints is, it prints 1 2 3 and then hello. Since we are passing the reference, even the original also changes. So modified in place. So what we are detecting here is modifications inside the function. Modification inside the function affect the callers list also. So where we're calling, that list also is being affected since we are passing reference to the function, not the value. So to avoid this unwanted changes, sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't need it. So avoiding unwanted changes, we use something called as the copy module. So this module helps us avoid unwanted changes. How does it do? Let's see. So we use copy dot copy obj. What this does is this makes a shallow copy. This makes a shallow copy, new outer list, but inner objects are still shared. So it keeps a shallow copy with this function. When we say copy dot deep copy, instead of just copy, if you say deep copy, what this does is makes a deep copy. This makes a deep copy. So it copies all nested objects too. Copies all nested objects also. So if you look at an example, let's look at an example for shallow copy. So I import the module, import copy, and then I say spam is equal to A, B, C, and D. And I say cheese is equal to copy dot copy spam. So I'm copying, making a shallow copy in this variable cheese. So when I say cheese of 1 is equal to 42, what happens is the output spam, which is the original, will stay intact. It doesn't change. Whereas the cheese, which is a shallow copy, changes. So we can keep the original and change the copy. So it doesn't require. So we can keep the original data and yet apply some functions upon it. But the same thing, let's look at an example of deep copy. This is for nested list. So what do we say nested list is for, meaning a deep copy is for, this also copies the nested part of it. So it's primarily, it has the same function, but this is for the nested list. So if I say 1, 2, 3, 4, and I say deep, deep copy list, and I say copy dot deep copy deep copy nested list. So when I do this, this change is in the deep copy list variable. So changes made to the deep copy list variable similarly won't affect nested list as in same as the above example, but here this is used for a nested list. The other one is used for a normal list. So this is how you avoid unwanted changes. So this ends the reference part of the chapter, reference topic of the chapter. So this also ends the chapter on lists. The next would be uh, writing some questions and answers. So let's dive right in. So hey guys, we've been studying about the chapter list. So we have done with what is list as a data type, working with list, augmented assignment operator, method. We have done an example program, list like type, references. Now we are going to look into the questions under this chapter and the practice programs. So let's dive right in. First of all, questions. Okay, so let's try and look at these are simple questions. If you have seen the this chapter video, you would be able to answer it. So let's look at the first question. First question, what is, okay, let's, first question, what is the square bracket referred to in this list chapter? So what is the square bracket referred to means? It refers to an, it refers to an empty list. It refers to an empty list. So that means it is a list with 0 items in it. So it is a list with 0 items in it. Next, second question. How would you how would you assign how would you assign the value hello as the third value in a list stored in a variable named spam. So we need to store as the third value as the variable name spam. So we should assign hello to the third value. So index starts from 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So the third value means the second index. So we should give the spam of second index the value, we have to give the value hello. So what happens is, if suppose spam already has something like 2 and 4, something like this already in this list. So when we give the next value, it becomes spam becomes 2 comma 4 comma hello. So assuming that already 2 and 4 are there, even if for example if you have here 3, instead of 3 you will get hello here. So this is how you assign. And the next one is, now the third question, what does spam int of int 3 in a string into 2 divided by 11 evaluate to? So what does this evaluate to? So first let's look at each one line by line. So what does it evaluate to? Let's write down the equation again. Spam int of int 3 into 2 divided by 11. So first of all, let's evaluate this. When we evaluate a string 2 times, then you get it as 3 and 3. So this becomes 3 and 3. So it is int 3 and 3 divided by 11. Now int of 3 and 3 meaning 33. So it was a string before. Now we are converting into a int. So it becomes spam. So this becomes spam int of 33 divided by 11. So we got this. Now here when we say spam int of 33 divided by 11, you have to get the coefficient, which is 3. Now we convert that into, we get actually 3.0. Now we convert this into int, you get 3. So you have to say spam in 3. For suppose we have spam is equal to, we consider that spam is equal to, what is that, A, B, C, and D. Now let's assume this. So this is at 0th index, 1st index, 2nd index, and 3rd index. So when we say like this, we get the output as, or the answer will be evaluated to as D. So the answer will be evaluated as D. So this is the third question. Next question. This is the fourth one. What does what does spam what does spam int, sorry, I'm writing the same question as the previous, my bad. Let's change that. What does spam of -1 evaluate to? So you should say what spam of -1 evaluates to. So according to our previous consideration, we have spam as A comma B comma C comma D. So this is a previous consideration. So negative. So if this is 0, 1, 2, 3, this will remain 0. But if you have to go in reverse order, this will be -1, -2, -3. So when I say what is -1, and this can be -4 also. It depends. So you can start from here, you can go here, and it becomes -4. But D doesn't become 0, it becomes -1. So when you say this, you get the answer as D again. Because which is the, sorry, which is, yeah, we get the answer as D again, which is the last item. Which is the last item. So that's the last item. So that's the fourth question. Next, fifth one. What does spam colon 2 evaluate to? So again, we know spam is A, B, C, D. So what does it do is it starts from the second index. It starts from the second index and then goes to how many our indexes are left. But in our case, this whatever I have told just so, that is if it is 2 and colon. But here they're asking us colon and 2. So we should go till the second index and not include the second index. So whichever is here, it should go, for example, here is 2 is there. So it should go 0, 1 and 2, and not, it should not consider 2. It should only take the before elements. So there is 0 and 1. So what is 0 and 1 in our case? That is A and B. So answer will be A comma B. This is our answer. Okay, so next, for the next questions, let's consider bacon as the variable bacon as 3.14, cat 11, cat, and brew. So we got this thing. Now let's look at the rest of the questions. So sixth one, What does bacon, let me write that neatly. What does bacon dot index cat evaluate to? So we need to give that the index of cat, whichever that is. So what happens here is, here this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what is the index of cat present here? With that is 1. So that's why answer will be 1. As simple as that. Second, let's look at the seventh question. What does bacon dot append 99 make the list look like? Make the list look like. So what does it make it look like? So you can say it will append at the end. When I use the keyword append, it will go to the end and add the element. It will add the element. So it will add 99 at the end. Okay. Next, what will the remove statement do? So we have the eighth question. What does bacon dot remove, if I say remove cat, what does it make the list look like? So again, if you look at it, there cat at two position. That is, the cat is at first position and at the third position. So in this case, what we need to do, we have to remove the first occurrence. So this, what this does is this removes, let me removes first occurrence of cat, only the first occurrence. So then what does it look like without the first occurrence? 3.14 comma 11 comma cat comma true. So this is how it looks. Next, let's look at the ninth question. Let's look at the ninth question. What are the operators? What are the operators for list concatenation and list replication? So what are the operators for list of concatenation and replication? So for concatenation, it is the same as strings. This answer, for concatenation, it is plus, whereas for replication, it is into. Next, the 10th question. Difference between append and insert. So what is the difference between append and insert? So what append of x does is add x to the end of the list. So it adds x to the end of the list. Whereas if I say insert I comma x, It inserts x at index I. It inserts at index I. Similarly, the next question, what are the two ways? What are the two ways to remove remove value remove values from a list? So what are the two ways to remove values from a list? So we have already learned which the one is using the del. So if we say del list of the index, it will remove it. The next one is list dot remove value. So when do you use del or delete? That is to remove by index. When when you know the index and you want to remove the indexed value. The other is when you know the value and you want to remove the value directly. So these are the two ways. The next 12th question. Ways list are similar similar to string. So how are lists similar to string? So we can say both are sequences. We can say both are sequences. That means they're ordered. They're ordered. Next, you support both support indexing and slicing. They support both indexing and slicing. They work with length, in and not in operators, and for loops. So this is how both are similar. Similarly, the next 13 question. What is the difference between lists and tuples? What is the difference between list and tuples? So, so lists are mutable and they are represented by square brackets, and so that means contents can be changed. So contents can change. Whereas tuples, they are immutable. They are represented by normal brackets and contents can't be changed. So contents can't change here. This is the condition. So we are down to our last 4 questions. The next question is tuple with just integer value 42. So how do you write it? With just the value 42 is you have open, write 42 and compulsory you trail it with a comma. So what is important here? Trailing comma is required. So next, how do you convert or form a list from a tuple or a tuple from a list? I'm gonna write the answer directly. So how do you do that is, so tuple form of a list. How do you represent this is, you give the tuple variable and you give the list values inside. Or you say tuple list values inside. Tuple is the function. Next, list form of a tuple. What this does is you say list and you give the tuple values. So this is for converting between, or for changing the value, since one is immutable, one is mutable. For changing the values, we need to convert between themselves. Then only we will be able to change the values. Next, the 16th question. What does, or what do variables hmm, that contain, what do variables that contain lists actually contain? Actually contain. So what do variables that contain list actually contain? So what do they contain is a reference, also known as pointer, to the list, not the list itself. This is what it contains. It doesn't contain the list itself, it contains a reference to these lists, or pointers, if you may say. The last and final question. Difference difference between copy dot copy and copy dot deep copy. This is a very important topic we learned at the end. So what does copy dot copy do? It is a shallow copy. It is a shallow copy. Copies outer objects, shares inner objects. So it copies outer objects and shares inner objects. I already explained what this means in the video. Just look at it again if you didn't understand. Next, copy dot deep copy. So what this does is, as the name represents, it deep copies. So this copies the outer object and all nested elements, elements. So this concludes the question part of this. Next we are going to look into the practice projects, which will have clarity on how you implement list. Okay, so let's look at the practice programs we have, or practice projects. So one second. Now, so the first project which you're going to look at is, the first project is project 1, which is something called as a comma code. So what this does is, so what this does is, this converts a list into a string with commas and and before the last item, and before the last item. So this converts it to a string, and then converts it and adds a and into the last item. So if I have to explain it, if for example you have something like A, B, C, and D in the list, you'll print something like A, comma B, comma C, C and D before the last and. Okay, so how do you code this is, you write a function first, def comma code, and we are going to send him the list items. So first, if statement, if length of the item, so whichever list you have, it should have something in it. So if it is equal to 0, then we return nothing because there's nothing in it. So we return nothing to the main statement. Elif, if length of item, if length of, so it's items. So its length of items is equal to 1. So if it's equal to 1, we just return the one item which is there. Items 0. Else, if there is a proper string in it, then we return comma and then we join, then we join the items from -1 we start, so it'll start from 0 and go on until the last item by adding a comma plus we write an and, so it won't include the last item, it'll go till the last item, then we add an and plus items of the last item. This is what the statement basically what this, if A, B, C is there in the list until the last item, meaning in these three it will take and say A, B, A comma B comma C. Then for the last item it will add an and write D. So this is what this this is the main logic which means. So now we write the normal, we send spam is equal to apples, bananas, and then tofu, cats. So these are the four items. So when we say results, result is equal to comma code spam, and we say print result. So then what happens, the output would be as I stated above, it would be apples, it'll go till the second last, bananas, tofu, and then cats. So this is how this program works. So here we're using the operator join, which is the main. So execute this program. If you have any doubts, just mention in the comments so I can help you guys. Let's look at the next project. Project 2, which is character character picture grid. So what is this character picture grid basically means is it prints it prints a grid it prints a grid stored in a column major 2D 2D list as a rotated picture as a rotated picture. So it prints a grid stored in a column major 2D list as a rotated picture. So basically I'll explain while writing the code. So for example, we'll have grid. So the grid will contain multiple nested lists. So the first will contain comma, meaning full stop, full stop, full stop, full stop. How many full stops? Six full stops. Let's assume six full stops. So all of these are in a semicolon format. Okay, this is the first list. And the second would have same thing, but we'll have a O, for example. I'm not putting the same colons above. You assume that it's there. It'll be the same as how above looks. The next would be 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma dot dot. And the next would be my bad.
it'll have this 0, comma 1, 1, then 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma dot, then dot, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, then 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma dot, then 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma 0, comma. I know this is like a ranting and weird, but you'll understand the purpose of this. 0, comma 0, dot, comma dot, comma dot. Then at the end, dot, 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 dot. So we close it. So this is our grid. So this is how it is. Now what we need to do is we need to basically take this and rotate it this way. So these are items which are in this form will become like this. So this is a task. So how do we implement that is we say for y in range length of grid 0 grid 0 for x in range length of grid. So what this does is each row is outputted first. So it takes each row and then outputs it. Then what happens is in the each row it will take each column and output in this line. So each column in the output. So this loop does that and that loop takes care of the row. Then for that we need to print grid. This is a normal matrix form of printing x, y, comma, then we end it with the space. So this is to ensure we print without new line. Then after this each column is done, then we print. This is to make sure that it moves to a new line. Make sure that this moves to a new line. So this is basically it. Then you get the output such that this part will become something like this and we'll have all the rest of the format in the same. So this will be this and this column will become a row, etc. So we are rotating it. So our main motive is rotating it. This logic is normal for any matrix you're going to learn in the future coming up chapters. So it is the same, but here we're using with the help of list. What this does is it is going to the first nested element and in that it's taking the first column. So if I say 0 comma this, then what it does is it goes to the first one and takes the first element and continues printing it until this full thing is over. And it prints in such a way that it goes like this. So this is what this means. So this concludes the list part of the chapter. Next, we are going to learn about dictionaries. Stay tuned for that. Practice, and if you have any doubts, please mention in the comment section. Thank you.